Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of the Changing Room podcast. My name is Arbella Kappas, and I am your host. And this is a podcast part of my newsletter called The Changing Room that I launched about 2 years ago. And it's where I kind of talk about the way I like to describe it, style through the lens of life and life through the lens of style. So I use style and fashion and clothes as a jumping off point to talk about everything beyond that and more. And personal style and fashion in general has always felt very personal to me, and I think there's so many ways to discuss it and talk about it. And it's been a long time coming, but I've been wanting to introduce more people to talk to through either interviews. So I'm going to be doing a couple podcast episodes where I'm just chatting away with some interesting and stylish people I know, whether they be in my hometown of Cleveland or beyond. So today I spoke to my first guest, Sivan Eshel, who is a vintage seller here in Cleveland. And she can be probably partially responsible for sparking this new love for fashion that I've developed over the years. And that's just been through me stopping into her store and the various places where she's sold her items over the years. She started selling in 2013, and she has since opened a store in 2020 in the Tremont neighborhood. And she really is just like a hidden gem, just like a lot of other vintage sellers are here in Cleveland to me. It's where you go to really find something unique, something that speaks to you in a new way. And it's really where you go to view clothing as an art form that you can basically wear on your body. So I'm really excited for you all to hear our discussion today. We talked a lot about vintage and reselling, how she's observed it all change and shift like throughout the years. Obviously, so many things have changed with the changing of new apps and ways to resell items. We also talked a lot about trends and aesthetics and how fast they're moving, as well as our little recap of New York Fashion Week and some of the designers and styles that we are loving right now. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation and you tune in again. But for now, let's get into the changing room. Hi, Sivan. It's really nice to have you here. And just for being here for my first episode. So kind of how I told you, when kind of choosing who my first couple guests are going to be, I'm like, I need to pick people that I can just naturally talk to. And I know that every time I walk into your shop, every time we run into each other, we end up talking about 50 different topics about fashion, vintage, and everything else. So we'll just jump right into it.
Sounds good.
So my first couple questions that I want to ask, I think every guest, is going to be, what are you wearing right now? And I also want to, or if it has a story, if there's something you want to add about it, or if there's something you've been wearing in general lately that you want to chat about.
Yeah, I love that question, actually. Everything I wear pretty much has a little bit of a story to it. Mm-hmm. But right now, I'm just kind of comfy because it's gross and rainy out. So I picked a little bit of a throwback J. Crew cashmere preppy sweater.
Love it.
Love a little preppy. And then my pants are actually, I picked these up from another vintage vendor that I visited when I was in New Mexico. And they were the perfect cargo men's Gap worn in pant.
Yeah.
And as soon as I saw them, I was like, that was the missing thing in my closet. They're just hideous in a very good way.
No, and I've been gravitating towards ugly clothes at times.
That is my
ugly shoes. The Tobbies. There's these Nike Air Rifts that are kind of with, I talked about them, how they have a similar Tobby hoof type look.
Yeah.
And I haven't pulled the trigger yet, but I'm these are so interesting, and they are kind of ugly, but I don't mean that in necessarily a bad way. They're just kind of it's fun to kind of throw something in like that.
Yes, they're very polarizing.
Yeah,
there's definitely two sides of hate and love.
Yeah.
And the Tabby is one of my bucket list shoes.
So expensive.
And I know, and they're I always look on the secondhand market, of course, and it's just I
Yeah.
can't do it.
Yeah.
They're shoes. I know how much
Yeah.
I wear with my shoes.
Yeah.
So we'll see one day,
Yeah.
maybe for a special birthday.
Totally. And I love your sneakers.
Oh,
I'm wearing
yeah.
sneakers too today.
Yeah, so these are not thrifted, or they're not vintage, obviously. They're old school, or Converse. The crazy platform, high tops, the extra hiker, whatever you call them. But I did get them on Poshmark, which is like
Oh, I love it.
so seriously addicting.
Yeah.
Everything is secondhand. Everything I wear is pretty much secondhand, whether it's vintage or more contemporary. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Same here. And I've been addicted to eBay lately. I feel like
Oh my God.
it's getting bad. It's my new kind of thrifting because
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes.
Because like I used to really love Depop, and now I kind of like I'm away from Depop a little bit. Still like Poshmark, but it's been all about eBay for me.
eBay has like sparked my imagination again because like thrifting has been interesting lately. We'll probably get into
Yeah,
that. But
yeah.
eBay, I used to hate eBay. Well, we'll go into it later, but eBay has been a roller coaster ride for me. And all of a sudden, I just really been enjoying like getting into these wormholes of like what is out there, and it's been
and it's so
very
much.
dangerous, very dangerous.
Oh, I agree. And I like and there's cheap options, and I've
Yes.
lately just been turning to it when I want like certain staples because I've gotten so picky about like I've been trying to find a good pair of fry boots for the winter.
Oh, we're
And
bringing back fries.
I've always loved fry.
Yeah, okay,
ever
sure, yes.
Ever since I saw this girl at my summer camp wear them, I thought she was so cool. And then I
awesome.
forgot about them. I will be honest. I just completely
Right,
forgot about them.
right.
And they are coming back now. I see them all over, at least on TikTok. I see them all over. People are really styling the long ones. And yeah, I guess going off of that, are there any certain trends that you're kind of like gravitating towards right now, if any?
100%. I
Yeah.
feel like as much as I like don't necessarily like to follow trends, I like to look into trends to get new ideas. So I've been really into like doing skirts. I know we talked about this, longer the better. Like I love me a good skirt. Dresses, a lot of menswear and suits I've been into, like just easy, androgynous, maybe a little oversized and
Yeah.
baggy. Like
Yeah.
anything baggy I'm really into now. And I have been dabbling with the Y2K,
Okay.
but I have been doing like a niche of specifically searching out designers from that era. Like Justo Barcelona was like one of my top favorites when I was younger. It was like crazy prints, and like he would do these faces, and they would just like be super graphic shirts, and a lot of like 2000s club wear.
Oh, I love that.
And I don't know like why, but I'm wearing it more like casually. I've been having fun with that.
I adore
So
that.
those are my like new kind of vibes that I'm feeling.
And I think like that's the thing. I think there's been this like weird, so Y2K is for sure like back, but I think also like it's like there's so many different niches and like parts of it, just like with any era.
Yeah.
But then there's like a certain type that gets pushed to the mainstream, and people are like, oh, this is so ugly, this is so whatever. And it's like, yeah, but there's so many different, like it's not just low waist jeans and juicy tracksuits or whatever,
Right.
which I love. But I like both of those things actually
Yeah.
to a certain degree. Like
Right.
it's just like it's interesting how there's so many different subgenres within it, and I love that you're digging deeper like that, like
Well,
instead of just the surface of
yeah,
what is
well-
being sold to us, I suppose.
Right. It's well, I grew up in the 2000s. Like that's my high school era. So I really got to see it full throttle with like Paris and Lindsay and all those characters from that. But
Yes.
but I do, so I kind of have an idea of like what I remember really liking about that time period, and really kind of going on eBay and looking for those specific designers and just seeing what I can find. Like a brand that I really love is Moda International. And I'm sure maybe you've run across it at a thrift store.
Oh, I have a couple pieces from
Yes.
that. Yeah.
And they're very, very cool, cutesy, clubby kind of vibe. And I like really am into it for some reason, and just kind of reworking it, maybe layering it in an interesting way, not specifically wearing it out to go, clubbing, because I'm past that. But
And
yeah.
how do you like to make it more casual? Like for me, I think of like jeans or something kind of that neutralizes the piece, or is there a certain way you
Well,
like to?
always like a fun juxtaposition
Yeah.
on if it's a super sexy top, I'll definitely be wearing like a baggier jean,
Yeah.
or throw on like a super baggy, blazer, or layering with a sweater vest. Like if it's a sheer top, very like, playing around with proportions, I feel like is a really good way to neutralize and not make it so like on the nose
Yeah.
for like where you're going.
Oh, 100%. And that's kind of how I like to approach like style too. I love kind of like contrasting pieces, something either really feminine with masculine, or
Right.
there's so many different ways you can contrast it, and not everyone's way of doing that is going to be the same.
Right.
But yeah, I like that idea of like it's kind of a little bit undefinable almost. It makes the outfit like I don't know what this aesthetic is necessarily.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's fun to confuse people like that. And that's kind of what I think the Prada show did for their 2023 collection.
I have to
We can
tell you.
get into-
Oh my God, I have some comments about that show.
Okay.
In a interesting way, because
Yeah.
they say when you're looking at fashion, it has to spark some sort of an emotion out of you.
Yeah.
To relate.
Yeah.
And or not even to relate, just to like make you think.
100%.
And actually, that show really weirdly like threw me back a little bit. And I know she's doing a collab with Raf Simons, and he and her are like maybe a little bit of a polar opposite, but in a weird way, they find some like connection, and I really liked it. But we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, more
And
detail.
I do want to just get into, what are some style icons of yours, like specific people, either people you know or people you observe?
Okay, so I really, really like to be a sponge, and I absorb it from everywhere and anywhere I can, just because that's like my fire. That feeds me. So I do find people very inspirational, and I also find street style very inspirational, or a location. As far as people go, gosh, let me take a look at my little list here. So I guess
love that you're thorough.
Yeah, well, I guess I have to preface this by saying that I don't necessarily like would wear all of my icons' clothing. Like
Yeah.
I don't like copy, but what I appreciate about these people is their natural personal style. It's like it doesn't look like they worked with a stylist ever. It doesn't look like they're copying other people. So that's what kind of gives me that inspiration. For example, let's start with Chloe Sevigny. Like she is
Why did I know that was going to be the first person?
like she is the ultimate. I
her.
don't like the it girl name, but like she is to me. Like her style evolution has always kind of had a foundation.
Yes.
And it's never like deterred away from who she is, where she is in life, who she's working with, what designers are dressing her. It's always been like very cool. And I love her style.
And it's a little bit eclectic. Well, I would say it's like, a lot eclectic, but it's like, she has like a good base all the time.
Yeah.
Like I was actually I was writing just an essay for my newsletter about kind of using a statement piece as kind of like the main event of your outfit sometimes, because it doesn't always have to be. But I really like this photo of her, like maybe I'll put it in, but where she just is wearing like a really simple outfit, like just a brown
that is actually
sweater
very
vest.
conservative for
Yes,
her.
I think so. And she
Yes.
kind of throws you off a little bit sometimes.
But that coat.
Black pants, simple, boring outfit, and then a beautiful fur trimmed coat.
Surely vintage.
Yes.
That has got to be a
Yes.
vintage fur coat.
And
Yeah.
I love that because then it just still is her. And I agree. Like that's kind of how I
It's
looked at
interesting. I haven't never actually seen that photo of her, surprisingly. I'm always seeing like the ones where she's wearing like the little short cut off denim shorts.
Yes.
And then before anybody started doing the white socks and loafers, maybe even like after Michael Jackson, but like during, like she brought it back to like cool nerdiness.
that.
And that's like how I've always envisioned her. And she does mix a lot of vintage and designer, which I love. And she was the original that was doing, one of the originals that was doing that.
just like a mix and match.
Before TikTok, before everybody was doing aesthetics. Like, even in the movies roles that she picks, like her style in the movies is always so on point. Oh
Yeah.
my God. Yeah.
Oh, she's so
Yeah.
good.
So she's definitely up there. Another one that's kind of, let's go in a different completely. spectrum, I love Carolyn Bessette Kennedy. And also we have to go with her husband too, because they
Yes.
both had such like that quintessential preppy minimalist Upper East Side New York, like
Yeah,
which
her
I
black
love.
headband.
Oh, just like her black headband, her pearls, her like all Calvin Klein, super super clean.
I love this. Like just with the collar popping out just
Yeah.
slightly, and just and her iconic sunglasses that are definitely
Oh,
back and everywhere right now, like the more oval type ones.
yes. And I just like appreciate the ease that she just kind of feels like she threw it on, but like it's put together.
Yeah.
And I do like to kind of play around with that too and look effortless. Like it just embodies who she is.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like her. And I love the pictures of her and JFK Jr. like walking their dogs, and he's got like his hat backwards. And yeah, I just love them as a couple, and
Yeah.
really enjoy going back into the pictures.
Yeah, I think the
Pinterest
word
with them.
ease is really good, is a good description. Like she's
Yeah.
very like she didn't have any, like how you get decision paralysis with creating outfits. She doesn't have any of that.
I don't think so. And I think it's when you know who you are. And I know style changes and it should, but like you know who
Totally.
you are. This is
Yeah.
who you are and you're going to stick to it.
Yeah.
And it has some sort of like fluidity that just like has this ease, and you just throw on a headband and sunglasses and a blazer, and some people
Yeah.
can just look amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, so I really appreciate that style a
I
lot.
love that.
Other people that I've always loved is, of course, Iris Apfel. She just celebrated her 101 years old, and she still brings it. I mean, the woman she looks like she put a lot of time into her outfits because, she's layered in jewelry,
Yes.
layered in textures.
Yes.
But somehow it just doesn't look like it's wearing her. She's wearing it. She's rocking it. And that's another thing that I find when I look for my icons is they look like they're the ones in charge of their outfits. Like,
love that.
like
Yeah.
they're wearing their clothes. Their clothes aren't wearing them. And it doesn't
Yes.
matter if you're a maximalist or a minimalist. Like, if there's like this balance and it comes out of you and you just notice it as they like move about, yeah, that's amazing to me.
I agree with that. And it really actually perfectly ties in with this essay I was writing about kind of like how I'm trying to find this like balance between wearing like more simple pieces but then also still having that eclectic style, and the idea of like clothes wearing you instead of the other way around. And it's like that's so true. Like I feel like it's not that someone's wearing too much.
No.
It's just that maybe it just seems like maybe it's not coming from what they really feel. And I think it all comes with attitude as well.
100%.
But yeah, there's definitely like and I feel like she's had, her style is so lived in, and it seems like it has
yes.
probably changed over time, but still stayed true to her.
Yeah.
And I just love, and I want to see more just like older women and their style. Like we need to like celebrate that more. Like she's like obviously the number one there, but like I see so many women also on my TikTok feed, and when I see them, I immediately follow them. I'm like, this is my goal. Like I don't want my style to be defined by my youth. Like
no.
or guided by it necessarily.
I think it can be even more interesting as you get older, like to just see and look back to what you used to like, what you like now. Like just my mom is one of my icons, and her style has definitely gone through evolution. I feel like she skews more and more into like the youthful range of clothing, and I skew more into like the older range of style and just what I like. And it's just interesting to see where she shops and like what she likes, you know. So, but it doesn't age her by any means, even though she shops at Anthro. Like it doesn't look like, oh, you shouldn't be shopping at this place. You know, she's 73. Shouldn't say. Sorry, Mom. She's a young 73, and she like you would never know like, oh, you're shopping at a place for younger kids, or no,
It's all
doesn't
about how you
matter.
style it. Yeah.
It's how you style it.
100%. I'm actually wearing my mom's vest from the 90s that like once I found it like last year, I haven't been able to like put it down.
It's so good. I love that you found it, and now it's like an heirloom to you.
I know, it really is. And it reminds me of the ways she has styled it in like similar ways or different ways.
Yes. Yes,
Any
yes.
other icons you want
Oh,
to
of course,
mention?
Arabella. I would not disappoint you on this. Of course, I know you know Beth Jones of B. Jones
Oh,
Style.
I love her.
Ah, she is just
One of
an
the
artist.
yes,
I
with her piece.
honestly, she amazes me every time. She's one of the only people that really makes my brain thinking about new ways. Like, I feel like I get a little bit disenchanted with all the information, images that just are coming at me. She just kind of like really breaks it down, and she does it in a way where like she'll pick characters. And I like the idea of that. It helps you kind of guide your dressing style, especially if you lean more maximalist, which is kind of, I'm in the middle there somewhere.
Yeah.
And it helps you kind of like not freak out when you look all your thrift and vintage, because it can get a little mad in the morning. So
Oh, I can imagine.
she's amazing.
Yeah, no, she's great. I started following her back in like oh my God, it was probably 2017. It was right when I was starting my
Oh wow, before me, I just kind of recently.
and she's awesome, and she was like the main like inspiration for me when I was like starting my like little fashion blog, because I just loved how she talked about things, how excited she was about clothes.
Yeah.
Everything was vintage. And yeah, now I follow her on TikTok, and same thing. Like
Yeah.
she's amazing like outfit formulas. And yeah, it like she's a maximalist, but she has such a specific like vision for it
Yes.
that
Oh,
anyone
my
can
God.
pull from it. You don't have to be a maximalist.
Yes, and that's the thing. You're not going to emulate her. She somehow is able to put layers of things and hats and, the works. And it just
Yes.
makes her, again, it's not wearing her. And, but I like to pull, like you said, pull
Yeah.
ideas from how she does it. And I really, really enjoy, and it's just like watching an artist paint. I don't know.
Yes.
I also love Zoe Kravitz a lot.
Yeah.
She does like the very like good mixing of feminine and masculine, and just like the city New York style that I really, really like. She's always super
Perfect,
cool.
simple shapes. Like, I take a lot of inspiration from her. Well, I guess she has cool fall outfits too, but for the summer, a lot of times.
Yeah.
When in the
It's
summer,
too hot. It's
too
too
hot
hot.
for layering, and I think was one of my big inspirations when I started wearing like long skirts in the summer. I was just like, I never really thought that could be it, and I've never really loved shorts that much. And she just kind of like, I think it was a certain outfit where I'm like, this is literally just 2 items, and she makes it look
It's-
amazing.
I know. It's like I feel naked if I'm out of the house with 2 items, but like
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay. You don't have to like always put on a show, or put together a whole thing to just walk out the door. And I think that's my biggest issue, is because I identify with my clothes so much.
Yeah.
I'm almost like I feel like we're almost too enmeshed, me and my clothes. And sometimes it's because identity is so important when you dress. And I feel like sometimes you just got to get dressed, and you
Yeah.
got to walk out the door and be okay with 2 items on, especially
Yes.
on a hot day. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's
I I couldn't agree more. I've been feeling the same way. And a big thing, and I shared this with you many times when I'm looking through your racks of items, and I'm like, I love this piece. I just know myself that I've just become so overstimulated by certain materials. I can't do wool.
Yeah.
I can't do super tight turtlenecks, like, and stuff like that. And at one point I thought my style was this huge I had to have these multi-layered pieces. But once I started coming back to just getting dressed and being comfortable for
like
the
just
day.
being a human being.
Yeah.
Like,
And I totally agree with what you said. Like, sometimes it doesn't have to be a show. Sometimes it just needs to be you, and it just needs to be actually effortless, not trying to be effortless, because I think that's also kind of an aesthetic in itself. Like,
Yeah.
oh, just look like I just rolled out of bed. It's like,
Yeah.
that's also like overthinking it. So I totally feel that. So
Right.
I love that all these icons are just on such different spectrums.
yeah, absolutely.
Of style.
Like I said, I pick in, pieces of what everybody's coming to the table with, and I really I don't try and emulate too much. I try to get an idea and kind of mix it into what I feel I can, feel like me when I get out the door. But yeah, I really love all of these styles and all these icons, and I think the one thing in common is that it's wearable, they look like themselves, and they're walking around in life and wearing these outfits. And it's not like, I get it, they're celebrities and they go, even Beth Jones is sort of a celebrity. You know,
Yeah.
they walk out the door and they're dressed or they're on red carpets, but I like their, you know,
Yes.
everyday
Yeah.
outfits.
There's just like a personality, and I just like having also just like, you know, I'm such a talker. Like I love like when there's conversation pieces. Like I love like it helps me feel better sometimes too if I'm going to an event and I don't know anybody there. I'm like, okay, I'm going to wear a certain piece of jewelry that I know has a story behind it, or I'm going to wear like this vest. Like this is my mom's. Like I literally, there's like a video of her wearing this vest with like a shirt underneath and holding me as a baby. Like, and she just looks fabulous.
That's so cool.
And like it's just little things like that where it helps me with obviously socializing, but also I'm like, you know, it can be just simple things like that. It doesn't have to be like, and it just feels, as long as it feels like you. I don't know. Which
I like that idea of like, it's an interesting thing you said. I actually never thought of, and it resonates with me a lot. Is using your clothes as a way to express yourself without having to say a whole lot, and it's a way to kind of engage in social, like times where you're just not sure how to you want to approach people or something. And I feel like maybe because I'm sort of an extrovert, but I'm really an introvert deep down. So I
need a recharge.
I need, and but like I also feel like clothing has always helped me with social situations, and I really think that has to do with coming to the States because I wasn't I was born here, but I didn't grow up here, and I think not speaking the language and not being able to communicate, I think that was a big thing for me to like learn how to express myself. And at a time when I was 10 when I moved here, and so it's a weird time. You're kind of between like young and then teenager, tween, and like figuring out who your friends are. And I was like so lost because I didn't speak English, and so for me it was a way to express myself was through clothing. And I think that's pretty much stuck. So
where did you move from?
So Israel. My parents are from Israel.
Really?
Yeah, and I grew up there till I was 10.
Wow.
And moved to Beechwood. Yeah.
That's I never knew that about you.
Yeah,
that's crazy. And you did, and you learned English as you went?
Yeah, it took me about like 3 months to really kind of become fluent. And then, but yeah, it was still a very like it's a culture shock for sure.
I can relate.
Yeah, you can. Can you? Okay.
Yeah. Well, when I lived in Lithuania, like, so I was born here, but then I lived in Lithuania for like 5-6 years. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And so you can. Yeah, for sure.
And I knew both languages though. So when I came back here, the only culture shock was literally just how different Lithuanians and Americans are.
That's what I mean too a little bit.
That's part of it though.
It's definitely.
But that's fascinating. I really did not know. So yeah, wow, that adds like so much more meaning though to like getting dressed and like, I mean, when we're in our tweens and teens, that's when we start really developing like, what do I like? What do I not like? And start experimenting with either what, you know, pop stars are wearing or what your friends are wearing or people you admire in the halls, you know?
Yes.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. And it was definitely a time to kind of like either wanting to blend in because you stuck out already as a foreign person, but also like that wasn't my style. Like I never liked to be, you know, one of the crowds, so I had a hard time figuring out where I should be as far as like who I am. But yeah, I remember just even going through high school and middle school, I never really liked what I saw my fellow students wear. And it wasn't like conservative or anything, but you know, they all wore the same thing. They wore the North Face little fleece, their little Kate Spade purses, and Birkenstocks. And I was just like not ready for that. I was like into colors and like tennis shoes and funky. So so it's an interesting time for sure to figure out who you are and what you want to look like. That's
crazy. I'll say one more thing. When I felt probably the most as a foreigner when I was in Lithuania, because I had already kind of developed some friends here before first grade. And the biggest difference between, I think, not biggest, but just one of the main differences for me, at least growing up in terms of clothing and style between Europe and America, is that here, whether it was in the Y2K era or now, you can walk out with sweatpants and people will not bat an eye.
Oh my God.
In Europe, you need, especially women, have to be dressed to the nines. It's like, you know, it's an expectation. It's all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I was starting to feel a little bit of that pressure, even though I was only in elementary school. And everyone just wore very kind of simple, nice things. I guess a little bit more conservative, a little bit more. I was a mix of all kinds of things.
Yeah,
and I
sure.
remember wanting to wear crazier things, wanting to wear more interesting things just from what I saw on TV and stuff.
Yeah.
But I, at the same time, was a really shy kid. So I was like, I need to use clothing right now as an armor to just cover me up and hide me. So my style was kind of non-existent when I lived there, unfortunately. But then when I moved here, that's when I started like really experimenting, because I was like, I'm gonna be emo, and then the rest is history.
It is. That's the nice thing about living in the States in general, is like you can really kind of find who you want to be, and you can, you know, in high school, I'm not even counting high school, because that and middle school, those are like really hard years, and you sometimes have to conform. But like you can't really play around, and there's so many different people here, and it's not like, you know, you can wear your sweatpants, you can wear your emo clothes, you can look punk rock, you can be whatever you want to be, and that's really fun. And the freedom to do so here is so. Like, we don't even realize how lucky, in a way, we are here.
Yeah,
you know?
there's so much variety
Yes.
to choose from, and yeah, I totally agree.
Although, you know, small town USA, you know, that's tough.
Yeah, that can be tough too, especially for,
But
like,
you can move 20 miles away, and you're, you know, wherever. And so it's awesome that you do have that ability around here.
So I guess going off of a little bit kind of like your background and personal life, I mean, when did you tell me a little bit about when you started kind of selling vintage, or like found a love for vintage and it turned into what it is now, where you have, you know, your own store, and how did it kind of come about?
So, yeah, well, because my parents moved to the States from Israel, we totally changed how we were living. So in Israel, everybody lives in small apartments. So when my dad brought us here, he bought us a house, which to me was like a mansion, even though it's a normal size house. And my mom like didn't know how to furnish it, and also we were on a strict budget because we were, you know, new here, and going to estate sales was the way to go, because, well, my aunt used to own an antique shop. And she turned my mom into this, you know, because in Israel there's really no such thing. So it turned my mom into this whole world, and we would go on weekends, and we would just like get the Sunday Times and circle all the little like areas that have estate sales. And it was a very East Side thing to do. So it wasn't like super frowned upon or anything. But yeah, we basically furnished our whole entire house with secondhand furniture and antiques. Wow. And my love of vintage, I think, came from that, because I would also kind of dabble with some of the clothes that were there. And even though I didn't really understand vintage clothes at the time, but I definitely appreciated like what I saw, and it intrigued me a lot. And you know, I remember one thing my mom bought for me at an estate was a Sonia Rochelle puffer coat from the 80s, and that's one of the things I cannot believe I got rid of. Like, it stupid, but it was so cool, and I would be so nervous to wear it to school because it was just out there and puffy shoulders and huge. But I was like, this is Sonia Rochelle. You can't knock it down, blah, blah, blah. Like, this is the best thing, you know, this is a designer. So I kind of got that like bug from going to States, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
First thing, yeah.
And so I guess in total, how long have you been, I guess, selling vintage?
So selling vintage, probably over a decade now.
That's crazy.
Yeah, a little over a decade. I think I established my LLC, I'm like 99.9% sure, at 2013. So, but I started selling it before on Etsy, before I even realized I can turn it into something.
So Etsy was your first platform. I always wonder what... when I talk to any sellers that have been doing this for a while, like not like the Depop sellers that have just started in the last 2 years, but like really started, because Depop wasn't always around, Poshmark wasn't always around. Right. It was like eBay and Etsy.
Yes.
So it's interesting.
I tried eBay first, But I never really pulled the trigger on it because it was very complicated. They take their
Really?
listings very seriously. I don't know if you've
Interesting.
ever listed on eBay
I've
yourself.
thought about it, but I don't know.
it-
Evan does it for just like for random stuff he finds at the thrift store
Yeah,
sometimes,
yeah.
but I don't know.
They ask you a lot of like in-depth
Really?
questions about items, and like I don't know, maybe now it's different, but like it just didn't feel user friendly to me, whereas Etsy was so easy and really seemed user friendly and like aesthetically pleasing when you even as a shopper when you look at the stores. So I really started there just because I think Etsy just kind of started becoming popular when I was first starting out selling at all. But I don't know. I don't prefer selling online anymore. So
Totally.
it's,
And I'm sure it's like, I mean, I've heard this from a lot of sellers. They just like prefer if they can to have an in-person space because like it just
there's pros and cons
pros
to
and
all
for
of it.
sure. Yeah. And I mean, the pandemic changed things too.
Yeah.
I guess I want to ask, this isn't really, I think I had this question on here, but what is kind of, and this can like lead into whatever other talking points you had about vintage reselling. Like, I feel like vintage and secondhand has really made a boom like in the last
God.
couple years. I remember there was a time when I went thrifting in high school with my mom. My mom raised me on thrifting in Lithuania, here, everything. And kids would like make fun of me. They would say like, you go thrifting, like that stuff's dirty. And so many other people have the same experience.
Yeah.
And now it's trendy. It's also just more obviously sustainable and popular. What is kind of the biggest change you've noticed from when you first started selling to now, and how like I guess certain vintage pieces maybe become trendy, or how people view vintage buying, I guess?
So I'm so excited about what's happening with like just in general with vintage and sustainability and wanting to explore like secondhand clothing in general and not having such a taboo attached to it. But it has become so crazy lately with what is vintage. Like now there's like this whole hashtag true vintage, you know, and like when people say things on vintage, like in Depop, if you call it vintage, it's not like people are upset that really sell vintage clothing from the 30s and 40s, and they're just like kind of, there's a whole lot going on, and the subgenres of vintage are kind of really like getting blurry.
Absolutely.
You
It's
know?
getting murky a little
It's
bit.
a little murky, yeah. So as far as like becoming mainstream, I think that's great. I think it depends what market you're in. Like from my personal experience with selling vintage in Cleveland, I think there is still a lot of people who don't really understand it or don't really know. They know thrifting, they know that's the word.
Yeah.
But there's a difference in vintage and thrift.
Yeah.
Like, you know, thrifting is contemporary clothes, it can be anything, and vintage is specifically older.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think there's definitely people are really, really, really excited about it now and are aware of it and are interested. And, you know, I've noticed Vogue is like constantly posting about articles online about vintage and people who sell it and how well they're doing, and, you know, celebrities now wearing vintage. So, yeah, it's exciting, but also kind of murky a little bit because anything that goes mainstream
Yes.
can have a little bit of repercussions when it comes to, you know, as a reseller, as a market in general.
Totally.
Pros and cons, I guess.
And again, with like the new apps popping up and how like there are cases where, you know, people who like start their own Depop shop and they kind of are just trying to make a buck. And I mean, fair. I literally saw a video recently where someone said they saw someone come in and into a thrift store and they just, I think there was like a certain like colored tag that was like 50% off that day for like pants or something. And this girl observed how this person came in, pulled off every single, just went down the aisle like a, just quickly like grabbing pieces without even looking, like obviously just there to like stock her shop.
Oh God.
And people, well, the girl who observed it, and I feel like anybody else who hears that, it feels a little odd because, or like disturbing a bit almost, because it's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
And, you know, I feel like with your, like, I feel like it's definitely like takes so much work to kind of like find these pieces you find, like from estate sales, from various places, like, you know, it takes like knowledge. It takes, obviously you have to like refurbish the pieces a little bit. And it's like now it's kind of become this like, okay, I'm just going to grab a million things at a thrift store and resell it for 20 times the price.
Right. And
it's not vintage.
and it's not, yeah, and it's not even sustainable anymore. You lose that whole sustainability of it.
No.
And it's greedy.
Yeah.
Like I've seen it happening in thrift stores. I've seen thrift stores getting greedy with their hike.
Oh, 100%.
Oh my God. I'm not going to name any names, but certain ones are hijacking their prices because they know and they spot us as resellers. Well, at least the ones that are just as crazy to just take everything off the rack. I mean, at least have some sort of respect and like be a little bit, you know, aware of other people's needs.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it's just
100%.
what's happening is just there is this like opportunity now, and people are just going crazy and taking advantage of this, you know, of this market.
I think it's like an interesting discussion because I think it's like it's very nuanced because again, there's kind of like sellers that have their own store and have been doing this for years, but then there's also the people that just kind of jumped on this bandwagon and they're like, oh, I can make money through this, I can resell things. And then there's obviously the people who are just reselling things that they don't wear anymore, which is like also like go you. Sometimes it's better to I almost directly sell to people because you know it's going to someone who's going to wear it instead of giving it to a thrift store that might end up just
throwing it in
throwing
the landfills
out anyway.
Yes.
So
100%.
Just it's a lot of different angles you can come at it from.
I think that a lot of people are a little bit uneducated when it comes to understanding the cycle. So like when a young person or old person, whatever, goes to a thrift and does that tagging thing and they're just taking everything without even looking at what it is, I don't think they're doing it just like because they're, you know, in bad intention. I just don't think they're thinking it through, really.
No,
And it's just unfortunate, and there's not enough education because it like came out of nowhere. This whole like this mainstream, this popularity of vintage and resell, all of a sudden, especially I think through the pandemic, everybody started doing it all of a sudden. So I don't know. I feel like we need to really think and be more conscientious of like what we're actually doing, and that's kind of what I'm lately dabbling with in my own head. But you know, there's good and bad, and if I'm going to sell anything, it's going to be vintage or secondhand. I'm not going to sell fast fashion. I don't even bother with that at all. Like that's to me, you know, I wouldn't buy it at the store, and I'm not for sure buying it at the thrift. So
and the thrift stores are kind of getting filled up with them now.
I know, it's really sad.
It is, because you think like people make videos of like seeing certain pieces from fast fashion sites that were really popular like 2 years ago, and now they are cycling down to the thrift
so quickly.
Like, and I mean, if they can be reused, like that's all we can hope for. But really, like I think what people are now realizing, because I think there was like the thrifting boom, and now people are like, no, actually the best way to be the most sustainable is to just buy as little as you can and just wear what you can. And for me, just from like a personal shopping perspective, I've become very overwhelmed with thrifting lately. And I've been I've always shopped at your shop. I've always shopped at other vintage places. But when I want something like really unique and like something secondhand and a vintage piece, I'm like, well, I might as well just go to your store. I might as well go to a local market. Might as well go, you know, support a local store. And there's so many in Cleveland, you know, and really anywhere you go. That makes me feel better because I'm finding better stuff. I'm paying a bit more, but it's like I know it's real things. And it's pieces I know I like have to think through. Because I don't know if you've ever experienced this, I guess, shopping for your own stuff, but I started to feel like I was really over-consuming on thrifting. Because it was so easy. I was like, oh, this is cheap. This is super cheap and it's super cute. And then I didn't stop to think like, am I going to actually wear this? So that's something I've been
oh, yeah, for
in
sure.
a tizzy with.
I think in my beginning stages of thrifting and reselling, I wasn't educated myself at all. I was so like now I research tags, I research what the market's selling for. I would just do the same thing. I would just grab and go and load it up, by the pound. It's just like, it was
Yeah.
crazy. But now I'm much pickier. I'm more picky with what I bring into my life, into my shop, into my own personal closet. And I really try to stick to it. Now, I do like to try new things. And I think that's the wonderful thing about vintage and secondhand is that if you want to try a new style, if you want to explore a new style, it's a more sustainable, affordable way to do it. So for me, I definitely made some boo-boos,
Yeah.
buying things I shouldn't have bought.
Yes.
But I redonate and I do give away to friends like things that I don't wear. But yeah, you have to go through that cycle, but be conscious of it. And I know you do that. I know you mention it to me all the time. Like and I really, really actually tell my customers that come in, don't buy it unless you absolutely see yourself wearing it tomorrow. And that it fits in your lifestyle.
That's a
Don't
good
just
way.
buy
Yeah,
to buy.
tomorrow, immediately.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't have the capacity to bring in good vintage every single day. So if you don't really love it, let it stay here.
Yeah.
I can't fill my racks that quickly anyway. So
Yeah.
no pressure.
And I love that because
you
that
know-
is, and that's why I like slow shopping.
Yes.
And locally. I think when you shop locally, you're shopping more slowly, like at local spots, because you don't feel this pressure. Like
Right.
maybe a little bit because you want to like support a
Sure.
small business.
Yes. Yeah.
But when you're shopping online, you're getting bombarded with so many advertisements, so many different like, oh, if you want X aesthetic, buy these 5 things. Whereas I don't know, I've been trying to find already in the last couple of years. I'm like, how can I more just intentionally shop? And to me, it's exactly what you just described. Just
Yeah.
going to local places and, not feeling that pressure. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I really do try to support my fellow vintage vendors. I feel like 80% of my closet is from them, and on top of the things that I find and don't want to give up. So yeah, I really, that's how I love to shop. I love markets. I love going to antique shows. I went to Burton yesterday, and that was really great. And I love seeing the same vendors there and have that rapport. I mean, it just gives you
Yeah.
a whole nother satisfaction to shopping, whereas in just grabbing, at a fast fashion store something because it's trending or cool,
Totally.
doesn't give you that satisfaction. It's like 2 seconds and it burns away, and then you never really care. So
Definitely.
when you do care about something that you're purchasing, you will most likely hang on to it for a long time. So real quick, I feel like with celebrities taking over certain vintage pieces
Oh,
and
yes.
making them so I was thinking about this and I was wondering why are celebrities buying vintage to start? They have the whole world giving them brand new beautiful designer
Yes.
pieces. But because of TikTok and social media and the rise of the democracy of fashion, I guess I would say at this point, it's become more accessible to so many people being able to emulate celebrities. And I feel like celebrities are kind of getting a little snarky about it and wanting to people not to emulate them so much and be a little more unique. And they've been kind of with the Jenner sisters turning into Jean-Paul
Yeah.
Gaultier and
Yeah.
turning that whole world upside down because I mean, honestly, when they started wearing those mesh
Tops.
from his 90s Soleil collection with the dresses that look like tattoo, all of a sudden I'm seeing it on eBay and First Dibs for triple the amount that they used to be. And
That's fascinating.
it's so fascinating
Yeah.
to me, and how vintage can trend now and
Yes.
really be crazy. So
No, I'm glad you brought that up because I'm sure you notice it literally in real time as you're doing your own research
Yeah.
and what to find and what you're seeing. And it is interesting. They want to almost make sure to tell us no, we have a unique style too.
unique and unattainable.
Yes.
And we're at this level, and you guys can stick to whatever you like to buy and emulate us if you can. But guess what? You really can't because we have vintage, and technically you can't really emulate it, so, unless you want to spend a lot of money. But again, it just makes it feel like there is still that hierarchy of people who can afford it this level, and then so vintage has become a little bit tricky with that for sure. Yeah, I don't know. I was trying to think about this, and I was like, yeah, why are celebrities just all of a sudden making these,
Yeah.
like, constantly going to the archives?
Yeah, and they wear something, and then yeah. The mesh top is one example, and then probably Bella Hadid. I mean, she just kind of brought back, like, I think her style is definitely very herself. Like, I don't think
Yes.
she's purposely trying.
No, I don't
to
even think
send a
Bella is
message.
in that realm.
Yeah.
She doesn't care if it's necessarily a name brand. I mean, she
Yeah.
shops at any vintage Depop store that she, whatever she likes.
Totally.
And I like that even she goes for obscure vintage designers that not
Yes.
too many people know about.
Yeah. And I think with, I don't know, I think also just one of the biggest things that I think can help develop your personal style and when shopping is like knowledge.
Yeah.
Because, obviously the things that are most popular are going to be the most expensive probably. But if you kind of know your designers and are curious about it, like you're like, oh, this designer, I really like their stuff. I love their runway shows. I wonder if there's something on the Real Rail or on eBay that is like not that expensive, but I know it's quality,
Yeah.
but it's not necessarily trending because not all designers can be trending
No.
all the time.
No.
Like lately I've been trying to, I went in a deep dive and I became obsessed with Helmut Lang because I'm like, what the heck? This is like perfect minimalist, gorgeous
Interesting.
pieces. And he's not really trending. And of course it's still going to be expensive to a certain
He
extent.
is on the verge of trending.
I really?
Yes,
Okay.
I think you're trend forecasting right now.
Okay. By
Because-
accident?
No, because I actually just watched a YouTuber. His name is Icy, and he's British, and he goes on the London street style scene and documents people's fashion.
Really?
I think his blog, his YouTube channel is called Unknown Vlogs. And he just went to some guy who literally has archived the most, like, I don't know, unique pieces Helmut Lang has ever done.
Wow.
And he literally has, you should watch, if you're into Helmut Lang,
Okay.
you should watch that vlog
I
on
will
YouTube.
look it up, yeah.
And I was just like, I wonder why he's reaching out to this guy, because I feel like there is this resurgence of Helmut Lang's, like, minimalist streetwear, weird, like,
subversive basics
sort
because
of
he
like
does do the
deconstructed. Yes.
Yeah.
So you're trend forecasting, I think. So yeah, you're onto something there for sure.
because yeah, certain things like that, like kind of oh, it's just interesting how trends come about in general.
It really is. It really is. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess New York Fashion Week and all just the newest collections that have been coming out. I mean, I kind of mentioned this already, but like I have been just only learning about like designers only in the last, I'd say, like 3 to 4 years, like really kind of becoming like interested in like the world of runway. And it's been really exciting kind of like finding patterns between like how different designers like have certain styles that they either stick to or they go away from. So, and I really love looking at vintage shows. Like I love looking at like 90s shows and stuff like that. So Prada has always been one of my favorites. So I think Prada is definitely one of my highlights. And you said you had some feelings about Prada.
So I surely did. My initial thought was like, oh, what is going on here? Because there was this one-piece cat suit
Yes.
that was coming down, and it looked totally weirdly tailored. Like, I was like, what is happening here? And then more looks would come down, and I would start to see like the point of view, which after, and then I like to read on Vogue Runway app the coverage, and
Yeah,
after I
me
read
too.
that, I was like, oh, it all was obviously purposeful. I mean, I can't imagine either one of those designers, Miss Prada, Miuccia, and Ralph Simmons,
Yeah.
sending down models with weird crotches and in like weird places and in those cat suits. So I thought, okay, this is interesting. Yeah, so I really was intrigued by that one. That was a very interesting take on Prada and like going back to like wrinkles and like
Yes.
wearing your clothes, not carrying, kind of getting out of bed and having your stuff like not be perfect.
Yeah, lived in, I think.
Lived in, and it was, and then the more I looked at it, the more I liked it. So obviously that's what it's supposed to do. It's
Yeah.
supposed to make you think and be like, huh,
what does this mean?
Yeah.
And I had the same kind of reaction. Like I liked certain things, and then other things I noticed, I'm like, something's off about each of these looks.
Yes.
And is it just me? Am I not getting it? And then I read the coverage, and then one of my favorite fashion writers, Rachel Tasjian, she writes for Harper's Bazaar, and she wrote this beautiful review, basically really nailing it on the head. She basically talked about how it's like embracing this ambiguity, and it was like almost meant to confuse you a little bit.
Interesting.
Because then sometimes, or that was her take at least, and then that's, whereas other designers and shows might be like very specific, like this is my exact message, these are my exact inspirations, and this is exactly my intent. Whereas here is a little murky, and it's interesting to see, like we haven't talked about it at all, like before this, like how we were both kind of like puzzled by the looks coming down, and it was like on purpose, but I loved it. Like I really liked the sweaters with like the creases in the in the elbows.
Yes,
because it just shows this lived in wear of the clothes, which makes it so personal, because it's just like, we're living in these clothes, we're doing different things, like what are like the marks that we leave behind. And it's interesting, like I don't know, and it's also like, how is that going to translate to like, are people going to buy pieces like that look like that? Why not though? Because there's like ripped jeans became a big thing, ripped shirts became a thing. So I don't know, I think it was very unique, and
the
very
color
moody.
palette was like everything was a little off.
Yeah.
And the print that they decided to use was also like talked about a little bit in this particular review that I was reading on Vogue's app. And it was basically like, everything was just a little bit confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the tailoring was also very interesting. I loved the moodiness of it all. And interesting for spring.
Yes.
Too.
You're
it
right.
almost
You're
skews
right.
fall a little
That's
bit.
what I thought it was at first too. I'm like, no, wait, this is spring.
Yeah.
And and like these dresses that looked like almost like ink was spilled on them.
Right. Yes. Yes.
This particular like green I've been seeing everywhere, like this kind of more, I like to call it like pond water green. Like it's
like
just
the pond scum.
Yeah, like this like bright like mossy green.
Yes.
And kind of chartreuse, but a little bit like more like just dirty. I feel like it's been everywhere, and I thought that was a cool piece.
Yeah.
And the creases in the sweaters, really, like I thought that was so interesting.
I did too. Yes.
And obviously I take a lot of inspiration from runway shows for like specifically styling outfits too.
Yeah, exactly. That's makes you again think about things in a different new way. And
like, oh, I could layer this like this, or
100%.
And they make it look so effortless.
I know, and I know that runway don't really necessarily translate to real life. But in this show, I feel like a lot of the pieces are like, ready to wear. Here we go. Why not?
They're already worn.
Yeah, they're already worn for you.
They seem like they're already worn.
Yeah,
makes it unique in itself.
This is like what I was talking about. That like really threw me off. I was like, what is happening in her? But it's supposed to be that way.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be that way.
Very
like all wrinkly in the crotch, and she's been sitting and probably traveling in that on the flight.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I did love it. It took me a sec. At first, I was like, but as the models went down the runway, I really got into it more and more, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's how a lot of her shows have been, even throughout the years, where it's like you kind of have to like wait for it to sink in, and then you can have like an opinion on it, because like I think she's thrown, I don't know, especially with this one, just like kind of throws you off a little bit, but I like that.
Yeah, I think it's a good match between her and Raf Simons.
It's been interesting.
Yes,
and I just like will probably remember this collection more than last year. When did they start the collab? I think it was 2020.
I think so. When they did the Tokyo show, they did a Tokyo show and a Milan show simultaneously.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? It was like cast together, and that one got a lot of mixed reviews.
Yeah. And I know last year's with the white tank tops, like, and that
Yeah,
the
that's fall.
simplest piece of in the world, and they just like reintroduced
I
it.
know,
And
I
that's just
know.
so interesting to me.
I know, I know. And who really is going to be able to buy a $500, $600 tank top?
Right, tank
But
top.
the idea of the tank top, is fresh again. So
Yes,
I
it's
can't
fresh,
even,
it's
But
simple.
it's the way she did it with the layering of like the mesh and like the textures. And that's another thing. Like that's a really big trend I'm seeing for spring 23. Like everybody seems to be doing like this silk organza like layering.
Yes,
Have you noticed that
I
too?
have.
Like everybody's just shearing up, like
I
doing
have.
sheer layers over other layers.
Sheer
Sheer
everything.
everything. And it's interesting. Gloves.
Yes.
Again with the socks being sheer and kind of scrunched up and like showing texture
Oh
and
yeah.
different shininess and
I've definitely noticed that.
yeah, I love that. I think it's like this sporty romantic look that and airy and feminine at the same time. I
Yeah.
really been enjoying it. But that is like on my notes like as one of the main things I saw all over the runways is this like sheer, everything is sheer with like maybe beading or just tailoring or just kind of like sheer just thrown over like a whole outfit.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
and I love it because it creates that contrast, right? Like
Yeah.
the contrast with like a pair of baggy, chunky jeans,
Mm-hmm.
and then this like really like elegant like sheer slip dress or something that
Over it, yeah.
over it. Like I find that so like fun, and you see, I think you're seeing it in like people like a lot what I've been seeing people style, and I've actually searched a couple of these on eBay is like I'm gonna say the wrong name of it, but it's basically like a silk robe, kind of like this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The like house like dress.
House dress, yeah.
Yes.
And you tie it around, and I've seen a couple like TikTokers that I like their style TikTokers style it just on top of jeans or just like wear like a normal outfit. Again, just like that statement piece that just makes like a wow. And they get them in like crazy colors like pink and purple.
Oh, they made them in like some of the 60s ones like come in these saturated hues like hot
Yes.
pink and yellows and they're really really beautiful. I actually just bought one yesterday at Burton that was very Bridgerton inspired
Oh,
and
that too probably. I love how TV also influences things.
I know.
Yeah.
That's a big one for me, especially like historical. Maybe it's not super accurate, but like, yeah, costume
Inspired.
design. Oh my
Yes.
God. Anything that has like, anything between Gossip Girl to like to Bridgerton, like I'll eat it up. But yeah, I've been really loving like the bet jackets and the, the nightwear
Yes.
on the
Yeah.
street. Like I love it. Yeah.
And speaking of sheer, I mentioned how one designer that I really didn't expect to like really enjoy and like surprisingly be very inspired by was Tory Burch. And when I think of Tory Burch, I just immediately think of like those sandals and her like little logo. And she did the coolest like layering, sheer layering for her collection that
Yes.
I'm just I was obsessed with. Like
Yeah.
the way it just divides up the body
Yes.
in such a unique way. That's I think what I liked it. I liked that there was like there were these almost like skirts or tube tops that were like this part of the body that maybe you usually see like the midriff is like exposed, but in a way it's like I don't know, it was just such a unique way to divide up the body.
It has like a little ballet core to it, doesn't it?
does. It does.
And which I know has been like an aesthetic sort of trending around here and there, but like definitely has. I mean, I remember this company that I love that did specifically things for ballet and dance.
Yeah.
And they were known for like their mesh layering pieces, and so it kind of has that like on the go, super feminine. I love the flowy. I love the color blocking that she was doing. That's what
Yeah.
made it kind of stick apart to me, like stick out because the colors that she's using are so like off, and that's what I love about it too.
Yeah.
Like the pops of like this red or with subdued tones of khaki, and then you have this like pop of red, and then on top of that there's a blazer. I loved her, like this. And the belts too. Like this is really
the little mini belts with the
Yes.
wallets.
Yeah.
I thought it was so
yeah.
cute and feminine, and I would have never thought that her collection would have like caught my eye, but I just really, really enjoyed it, and it made me want to like pair like leggings. I recently bought a bunch of leggings because I realized the ones I'm wearing right now are like the only leggings I still have, because when I used to wear them all the time in like high school with just like everything.
Yeah.
But I realize now that I wear more skirts, I'm like, it's the winter and fall.
Oh,
I need leggings.
Yes.
I don't even think tights are gonna cut it.
No, I like leggings with underskirts a lot.
Yeah, and there's like, it kind of is just inspiring the way she kind of styled those little.
And they're not even just leggings; they're like quarter length.
Yeah,
Like the
capris.
capris, yeah, they were
The
like
forbidden word.
forbidden, they're forbidden, and so all of a sudden that just made it really kind of chic in
Yes.
a way with the styling. But yeah, everything, and then like as I'm going through the show, it's getting a little more like fancy, and then you're getting like those little like tube skirts over like a sheer gown, and it gives it that extra layer and cinching, and like, see, this is like a sheer, like a complete sheer over everything.
Yeah.
I dig it because I'm really into textures. So
It's so cool because it can, I don't know, it can be used in so many ways.
So
I like
many
this all
ways.
black look because I love how you can use different textures and everything can be still black and you can make it still look very engaging and interesting.
yeah,
I feel like it's almost a challenge, like, oh, how do I make an all black outfit
yes,
look not boring?
that's like the key word is the texture of the different black.
Yes.
Yeah, shiny,
Yes.
maybe a little bit nubby, maybe patent.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that.
Any others you wanted to mention?
I know I loved a lot of the more British shows.
Oh,
Yeah, but I actually one that was in New York. I loved Coach.
really?
Their like rebrand that they're doing.
Yes.
Oh my god! And they had Little Nas X as like their show closer.
Really?
Yeah.
That's one I haven't even gotten a chance to look at.
Oh, I really
That's
enjoyed
what I
it.
love. I like asking other people what caught their eye because it's different for
Coach
everybody.
is back on the map. I feel like
love
for high fashion and just like street. They're doing these
Oh
crazy.
yeah, the bags. I did see the bags.
So they're bringing back a lot of like their older styles, but mixing it with some new non-heritage pieces, and I've been really really enjoying like. They're doing a lot of vintage inspired collegiate stuff.
Yeah.
I love. They're in this spring when they're doing jelly shoes in like the most obnoxious colors, which I loved, and I kind of want jelly shoes again.
obsessed.
Like I know they were really popular a few years ago, but now they're coming back again, and I'm just really. I've always enjoyed, but I like them in these weird colors.
Yeah.
So yeah, Coach is doing some fun things.
And the satchels are so interesting, like these large
Huge oversized.
satchels. Well, people were forecasting already 2 years ago that big bags were coming
Like
in.
huge bags.
Huge bags.
Yeah.
Like I always think of the Olsen twins and those like just large oversized bags.
Yes, they're definitely icons for sure. Love the Olsens.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, you're right. Yeah, the only thing I saw, I think it was like on a TikTok video, somebody put together a thing of like the bags, but I didn't look at the clothes. I like it. Yeah, it's very.
Yeah.
They're definitely kind of changing it up a bit. Definitely trying to.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how
Oh, I love that
storied
color.
houses are becoming like reimagining them to be more relevant. But yeah, it's with these kinds of things though, you don't want to be too trendy. I don't know. I feel like they're kind of sort of sticking to Coach, but really not. It's more like rock and roll Coach, I guess, or something.
Yeah.
Something.
It
new
is
about
very
it.
rock and
And
roll.
like Diesel,
Oh,
I'm
Diesel's
I'm
was
kind of
so.
I'm kind of like maybe it's being a little bit too crazy now with the.
I liked it last year. I didn't like it as much this year.
Yes.
Something about it I didn't
I
like
think
as
we
much.
just are being inundated with like Diesel. Everybody that's like it is wearing Diesel now, and
The
I'm like,
mini
oh,
skirt
yes, and the belts
overload.
again, and the bags, and
Yeah.
like, and that's another trending item on eBay, like to look for old Diesel stuff. Oh, there's like 50 people watching one like shoe or boot, or it's just so funny and interesting to see these things happening in real time. It's
Yeah,
like-
and how they progress.
Yes.
Love the double jeans though.
yeah, I mean,
Not necessarily new, but it's cool.
yeah, I like that Glenn Martin's. He's doing a lot of like he's sticking to the house's ethos. Like
Yeah.
it's definitely denim driven. It's definitely the same bodycon kind of vibe, maybe a little baggy, maybe a little sexy. I don't know. It is diesel at its core for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm still letting a lot of things just kind of like soak in a little bit,
Yeah,
but
it's a lot to take in.
it's been interesting.
Did you see I know this is one of our favorites. Have you gotten a chance to look at Chipova Luona?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I like them. I they just have such a cool, like, I love that they take inspiration from kind of folk clothing, because every time I see their iconic skirts, it just reminds me of like Lithuanian folk, like,
Yes.
plaid
Yes.
skirts and
Well, they
stuff.
literally use fabrics
Yeah.
from Bulgaria of like tapestry that you hang in the house, and I enjoy the story behind that for sure.
And they're definitely one of those designers that I just admire from
Afar,
afar.
yeah.
As like, I admire the art that goes.
Yes.
It's art. They're pieces, and I love. And they're just really going to be the streetwear, I think, type designer. I think for like young people, because they're just all over TikTok, all over
Yeah.
everything. I don't know if it's anything I would ever incorporate into my style, because I don't do as much like pattern layering as I've done in the past, but
Yeah.
I love how it's just so much all at once, but
Yes.
it's just like it takes you like a minute to even look at the whole look, because there's so many different patterns and so many different like doodads and
Yeah,
stuff.
it's a lot of doodads. Yes.
And no, I adore it, and I think this was like their, actually, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't know if it was their debuted for Fashion Week, or maybe they did show last year too. I don't know, but they're quite new still.
Yes,
and
they're very new.
so that's really cool to see them kind of like growing, and
Yeah.
definitely that whole style of more is more is like very, very popular right now.
Yeah, but I also have noticed like people peeling back certain pieces and wearing them in a way that's not so overwhelming.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what you should do. You should take pieces from the designer, not actually wear head to toe exactly how they present it. But the fun thing about their pieces is you can really make it your own. So I really, really love the idea of that carabiner skirt over jeans, and like, it's so
Yeah.
cool, almost like a belt. So yeah, that's been a fun one to kind of watch come into the fashion world. I also been really liking Simone Rocha.
Oh, yes.
She's, God, her like, again, not something that I would necessarily be able to wear day to day, or like is really me, but like I really liked the like ethereal gothic vibe that
Yes.
she's always putting out there.
It looks just so. Every outfit looks like it's almost like a Christmas ornament, but
A
not
story,
Christmas.
yeah, like a fairy tale
Yeah.
of weird characters that you just would run into in like a weird forest of like,
And mixing
yeah.
this edginess with like the harnesses and like
Yeah.
all of that. No, I adore Simone Norca. I think like they bring something special, and I think they're similar to Shapova Luena, but they're kind of almost like inversions in their styles, kind of like they both have like, they're different enough, but they're both kind of like the maximalists, like
Yes.
buffet of like clothes. Like, I mean, everybody I feel like turns to them when they're like, oh, I want something that really is like wow.
Right.
So yeah, I definitely liked their stuff, and then I'm trying to think what else.
And then, well, Jill Sonder on the other spectrum
Oh.
of like minimalist
Minimalist, a
does
little
really quirky.
yeah.
I like them a lot.
And I don't want to say like their style is like kind of skews more older. It's just a little more like refined,
Yeah.
which doesn't necessarily mean it's like good or bad. It's just compared to the others, but it's just more like, obviously just simple. And
Yeah.
I've been really liking like their stuff, their older stuff, and they always
my
do
gosh,
these kind of
yes.
like long vests and like interesting tailoring.
Yes.
It's crazy how it rained. I like how they did the
Yeah.
umbrellas, because it just added another kind of vibe, like these clean business suits like going through a storm.
Spring storm, a spring shower. Yeah, it was very cool. I loved the color palette too. Yeah, it's a lot to take in, a lot of designers out there showing, and I feel like it's so nice that be able to be a part of it on Vogue runway and just
Yeah.
seeing it online, and like even being able to watch shows live, like
Yeah.
really, really, really enjoyed that. Tibby is another one that I've been really been on top of lately.
Yeah. Have you watched the own or like the head? What's her name?
Amy Mahalovic?
Smilovic.
Yeah.
Smilovic. Yeah. So
yeah.
she's been doing a lot of stuff on like lives through the Tibby account.
Yeah, like every Wednesday,
Yeah,
she'll
her
have a
personal
styling
Oh.
class, and I love that aesthetic of like,
Yeah.
again, minimal but like off.
Yes. Just something a little bit weird,
Yeah.
a little bit. Yeah. I've been. I bought a pair actually of vintage. I don't know if they're vintage actually. They're just like secondhand Tibby boots from Poshmark.
Yes.
And they were just like these simple boots that I just saw for $20, and I'm just like,
Oh, what a steal!
I know, they were very
Because
cheap.
even Tibby's still going high on Poshmark.
They are, and I don't know. I love how like kind of slouchy everything is.
Have you looked at her like way past collections, like in the 90s?
I have not. I've only recently kind of noticed her only because I started watching the lives, and her TikToks like popped up on my feed.
Yeah, her old collections were so pattern and girly heavy. Like they're still Tibby at heart with like being wearable and very much a New York City girl, but like it was just very different, and now it's so much more androgynous.
Yeah.
And suiting and foundational pieces, as she likes to call them, and yeah, it's that's a very interesting fashion house to look through for their evolution, because and it's the same designer too, which is interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you like maybe on eBay, if you have a chance to like search out old Tibby, you would be like, is it? That's
crazy.
Tibby? Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, and because I just really like the current collections. Where
oh my gosh, yes.
They're just so, I don't know, it's just, I've needed like just a palette cleanser, I think, in my closet.
That's a perfect way to describe those kind of designers. They
simple, basic, and I need a uniform in my life right now. With just like, sometimes you just need that, and I think it lowers my anxiety. It makes me feel like I can be a little predictable. I can be a little bit consistent. And then once I feel kind of like I have a good uniform, I can start adding those eclectic pieces and so on and so forth. So yeah, I've been definitely taking a lot of inspiration.
You're like the perfect Tibby customer then, because that's what I feel like she teaches in her lives a lot.
Yeah.
Is like, why do you go in your closet and pull out all these things and then you don't have anything you want to wear? Because you don't have this foundation of a uniform. Doesn't matter if you're minimalist or maximalist. You should always have a foundation of sorts. And that's so interesting to me as a concept to get dressed, because it's so true. It can be so overwhelming, and like, you know, palate cleanse is a perfect word for the world we're living in today when it comes to the stimulation.
Yeah. And one thing, I guess, kind of going off of kind of designers, because obviously they, you know, you could argue like they create the trends, or they kind of pay attention to what's trending, because it's not just obviously the designers or the magazines that set the trends anymore. It's now also TikTok and influencers and stuff.
And there's literally trend forecasters getting paid.
Oh, yes.
To help designers see what's going on. Like
exactly.
there's a
like
whole
years and years and years in advance.
There's a whole nother, because if you notice, sometimes you're like, why is this one color the only thing I'm seeing on the runways? Like, remember, like, actually the blue I'm wearing was so hot blue for like a year and a half. All this like deep crazy blues, and everybody was doing it, and now you're seeing sheer, or like, what, you know, it's not accidental by any means. It's not this like they're drinking the same Kool-Aid. It's literally they have trend forecasters.
Yes. And
it's amazing.
Like the Valentino pink that's like with Barbie core, like or even that chartreuse green I was talking about. I feel like that's kind of the it green right now, I think, just from like what I've been seeing.
Look at Fendi's new show.
Oh
my god, that green. Talk about a green. I've also been noticing, and I know Paige Wassel actually was mentioning this in interiors, and also Lainey Ozark, who kind of watches. Do you follow her, Lainey Ozark?
I think I do.
She's really good at predicting trends and things, and like she also watches Paige show, and pops of red are creeping in.
Oh,
socks, ribbons, like
ballet flats and
back
Mary
to
Janes.
yeah. So I feel like that's a big one for spring for sure. Is going to be pops of red everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we talked about it a little bit, like, right when you came, but we can, like, just about how all of these kinds of, I made a TikTok about it, kind of like sometimes I just make TikToks where I just kind of word vomit out and I'm like, we'll see if this is a thought that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I was wondering about all of these different aesthetics and how the word even aesthetic has become to me fatigued.
So yeah.
And it's almost replaced the word trend.
Or curated, like it's
Yeah,
like
it's
like,
a curation. Yes. So we had coastal grandma. We have obviously just Y2K trend, which what does that even mean? Like when we began talking, like you talked about these very specific types of Y2K inspirations you took.
Yeah.
And then there's ballet core. And then there's like I told you about like the kind of dweeb Bella Hadid core, which that's kind of like I don't even know if that's like it's just something I heard on TikTok. And then there's
Gorp core.
Barbie core. What's that?
Okay.
I haven't even
It
caught
sounds
up with that.
awful, but it's actually people who wear literally clothing that's functional in outdoor scenarios. So like raincoats and hiking boots and the cargos and wearing like all the fancy like gear in day-to-day life, not necessarily going hiking, but like they look like they're
Interesting.
ready for anything.
Okay. So it's
And-
not really like outdoorsy athletic wear. It's just kind of using those pieces in your outfits.
So
Okay.
yes, and it was very male driven, obviously. I mean, of course, but like whatever. But a lot of like girls I see, because I really love that aesthetic. I wear it in my real life, so I like when it's becoming a little more fashiony, I guess. And yeah, I've seen like girls wearing like nylon everything, nylon skirts, like the
I
parachute.
do love nylon. This is nylon.
Yeah,
and
like
it's
that.
so
The
comfortable to me.
fabrics that are just like in a rainstorm, they'll just like you won't get soaked. So like
Yeah.
that whole like aesthetic is a whole nother thing too. Gorp core, and I think it kind of also correlates with norm core, which is like Shia. Poor Shia.
Yeah.
LaBeouf, like he started wearing all that stuff and like so kind of somewhere in there I've just learned about this myself.
Interesting.
Yes.
But there's all these like different aesthetics that are just popping up like in real time as we like I don't know. And I think a lot of people are getting like I know I am. I'm getting overstimulated because I think now it's gotten to the point where the brands have caught on, the advertising people have caught on, the marketing people have caught on. So they're kind of like, buy these 5 things if you want to be the perfect coastal grandma. And it's like, well, like, are you then, and this is what I was trying to kind of ask, like, are you really then like pursuing your personal style if you're pursuing this particular aesthetic? Because this aesthetic is already prepackaged and created and curated for you.
You can actually buy aesthetic boxes on Depop. Did you know about this?
I did, but I didn't even like think of yes. Oh
You
my
can
gosh,
have-
that's such a good point.
You can buy aesthetic boxes and like dark academia, light academia, like whatever.
Cottagecore.
Cottagecore.
I think that's the one that started everything.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So you can literally have these personal style boxes tailored to you through like resale shops now, which is insane. I mean, interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I dabble with these too
Yeah.
because I like to play around.
Yes.
I did try the coastal grandma vibe, but I only, I guess, stick to the ones, and to your question, I personally stick to the ones that feel more me.
Yeah.
Like, I am not going to go dark academia on you any day. Like, I'm not that kind, I'm not, or like the Tumblr girl, or like
Yeah.
all of that, so it's nice to have a selection, but yes, it's like, you kind of almost can lose your identity, especially if you're a person who's trying to figure out your personal style.
Yes.
It can be overwhelming and scary.
I think it's better when you have, it's definitely good to dabble in it. And I love dabbling in trends. That's how I kind of have found a lot of the things. Like, for example, I think it was in 2020, I know because I wrote like a short article about sweater vests. Like they were really, and they've made, I think, several comebacks
I'm still
throughout
here
the
for them.
years. Oh, they have become a
staple
complete
now.
staple
They're
in
not-
my wardrobe,
yeah.
at least.
Yes.
I have like 6 that I wear consistently. It's
Love
not like,
it.
oh, they're just there. Like, and same with like the suit vest, I think for me have like, cause I just like something easy to layer on like that. So there's definitely ways that pieces from a certain aesthetic or a certain trend can like become staples. But I think as they're being created, as we like, it's so fast.
So fast.
It becomes overwhelming. So it's been interesting to see how it like affects people and their personal
I
style.
think it has a lot to do with social media.
Oh yes, because everything's pushed out so fast.
Pushed out, seeing what can go viral, seeing where it goes, basically. And it's interesting. It's a different world we're living in now. And but yeah, fashion is definitely it showcases what goes on politically in the world. It definitely shows what's going on in your own, in your own neighborhood. Like it's a reflection of what's going on. So these aesthetics constantly coming through is obviously because we're constantly consuming information and images. So it makes sense. It makes sense for the way we're living, whether it's good or bad. I mean, that's up to us as individuals to kind of, muddle through, I guess, and figure out.
That's a good word. Definitely. We're kind of just.
Oh my God, we're mind through. I mean, it's learning about all these aesthetics in a day to day, but I think it's also the use of words and I remember just being like a newly vintage seller like in a store, and how we had to everybody would say, oh, it's a curated vintage store. And I remember us talking about it. We're like, oh God, I'm so over that word, curated. Enough.
Oh my God. Yeah, like these certain words become, that's how I feel about the word aesthetic, because I think it's just, oh, I'm going for this aesthetic and this aesthetic. It's just like, it's over. People just run with it. And it's like, that's how, that's what, back to like palette cleanse. That's why I like going back to like runways and designers and their old shows and even new shows, but also old shows, and just kind of cutting out all the noise. And that's also another thing I've been thinking about a lot, like where I pull inspiration from. I'm like, I need to put down the TikTok sometimes. I need to put down the Instagram sometimes.
I know.
Because at the end of the day, those places, like, it just gets overwhelming all at once.
It is. And I think Beth Jones said this, and maybe even Lainey Ozark mentioned it in one of her YouTube videos, is don't even look. Wouldn't it be nice to just not even look at Pinterest, not even care about what's going on, and just go to your closet and grab whatever the heck you want and put an outfit together and see what happens, and just go out the door. I have been trying to play that game a little bit.
Me too.
And just like, not even think about it, not think if it's a certain aesthetic, not think about what I can say, like hashtag wise, on Instagram, and but like just like wear whatever the heck I want to wear and see where it takes me. And that's another kind of fun way to just palette cleanse and reach into who you are without having that noise telling you,
Absolutely.
So yeah,
just go to your own closet. And that's why I think I also started just buying a lot more neutrals. I'm like, I need to get my basics. So that's why now I have like 5 black skirts and like 5 white things and like a bunch of beige pieces, and they're all things I wear. And I'm like, okay, I have a uniform. At the end of the day, if I get into decision paralysis over my outfit, I have a uniform. And if I look boring, so be it,
Well, I don't think.
It is what it is.
Yeah, I don't even know that you can say boring. I think it's just if it fits your mood, if it fits your attitude that day, it could be the coolest thing, and it will never be boring as long as it's you. And I totally believe in that. It could be a t-shirt and jeans like Jennifer Aniston. I don't know how she does it, but my God, does she make t-shirt and jeans and like a leather simple belt look the coolest thing that came out in the world. And I could not do that because I could never feel comfortable doing it and feeling cool. But like, yes, but it's her, So
I agree.
Yeah.
And kind of like with that article, the Cut article that came out recently, that's like they asked like what is tacky versus tasteful. I thought it was interesting, the kind of the numbers in there, kind of like how Crocs are considered tacky, or how Julia Fox's style is considered tacky, and how it's like
so
it's usually things that are associated with things that are trying too hard, but also kind of maybe overly casual, but also overly too much. And one thing I wrote down just as my like reflection was like, I think just to be tasteful or to have a tasteful style is you have your own taste and you're just like confident in it and you're and I think you're not always going to be at that point. Like I'm still developing my style, my tastes in everything, really just not just clothing, but my interior design preferences and what kind of art I like and stuff. So I think just being tasteful is just that, like having your taste and that you're actively like interested in, and that I don't know, because I think clothing can be just such a personal thing and like, you know.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I agree with a lot of that. I think whatever is tasteful for some people might not be for others, and that's fine. Tacky is just such a negative word to me, and I thought it was funny that they used it in this case. And I love that they asked the question of like, is Audrey Hepburn the only thing we have that's like? And I thought that was really funny. But my thing about taste is definitely that it's personal, but also good, well-fitting clothing. I find that you can wear whatever the heck you want, but if it doesn't fit you well, if it's too tight, or if it just something is not right with, you know, your purchase or whatever, that to me is tacky. Like it could be head to toe designer logos. It could be whatever you want it to be. It could be if it doesn't look like it's fitting you well, then I'm done. Yeah.
And if it comes through, and I think it can affect your mood.
Yeah.
You know, and how you then wear those clothes. And I think that's when they start wearing you a little bit, when they just aren't fitting to you. Because obviously, you know, oversize is like a big trend right now. But if it's like fitted right and you like are comfortable in it, then of course
there's
it makes
a proportion
sense.
to it. Or
yeah,
like it can be too tight, too baggy, but if it's done in a way that looks purposeful and suits you and you're comfortable in it, yes. But if you can visibly see somebody wearing something that isn't fitting well, or the shoes are too high for them, or like things like that, to me that's quote unquote tacky. It's not anything to do with actually what physically you're wearing as far as like Crocs or tennis shoes or whatever. But
I agree. I think you make Crocs look very tasteful.
I love Crocs.
I love Crocs. I recently bought some.
I hated them at first.
Me too.
Hated them. Yeah, but now I'm into them. I love them. I wear them in ironic ways, and I wear them around the house.
Yeah.
So.
And that's the best, because like you at the end of the day need comfort.
And that's key, I guess, too. Comfort is a very good point. Like, to non-tacky. It's like, to me, if you're comfortable and you look comfortable, and I'm not saying like wear head to toe sweatpants comfy. I'm saying like you're confident in your choice. Yeah.
I feel like, you know, the times that I have felt most tacky in my clothes was honestly when I was trying to play a role with my clothes, and I literally felt like I was wearing a costume. Now, and it is fun to play different characters each day, but it has to be a character that's like a version of your style. 100%. And I feel like at one point, it was when I started my fashion blog and started like really getting into Instagram, and I wanted to take photos of my outfits. But the problem was I wasn't really getting dressed up as much to go places. I was getting dressed up in these really well-styled vintage outfits and taking photos of them sometimes with my camera, sometimes with my iPhone, and posting them. But I wouldn't wear those clothes anywhere. I would just wear them for the photo, and that's fine. But it messed with my head for some reason, because I was like, I'm not actually wearing these pieces. And I look back on the photos and I'm like, there's nothing necessarily tacky about this outfit. It's a well-styled outfit, but I'm like, I should have just put it on a model and photographed it.
It's so interesting. 'Cause,
the tacky thing was that I was wearing it just for the photo, and then just wasting the clothes, and they were just like, for lack of a better word, like rotting away in my closet.
Yeah.
That's what I
could relate, because there was a blog. Oh God, I forget the name of it, but it was a blog or a website where you could actually post your outfits. and people would like comment or rate them. And it was like a positive, hopefully safe space. And I remember it being that at the time. But I was doing the same thing. I would buy these like 6-inch stiletto pointed pumps. And I would never wear them in real life, ever. Like, I just bought them for the styling of the outfit. Because essentially, that's like what I love to do, is style. But yeah, you're right. It was like the beginning of posting outfit days, OOTDs, you know, like,
Yeah.
Yeah, you would just post your outfits for the sake of doing a styling shoot.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's a really interesting way to look on the tackiness of that. Definitely not anymore for me.
Because
Like,
it just didn't feel like me. And
Yeah.
and now I'm like, I've separated that. And it takes time. That's why it's
yes,
like you
it's an
can't, like,
evolution.
because
Yeah.
it's not like anybody ever called those outfits tacky or were mean to me.
No,
Like, people,
yeah.
the opposite, actually. People were loving the photos. They were like, oh, this is beautiful, blah, blah, blah. But I was like, this just doesn't feel right to my personal style. And it is what it is. It still inspired me. But that's kind of almost why I like, you know, as much as social media can also like poison your personal style, I've really been enjoying just how now the new way to share your outfits through TikTok is just like you put down your phone and you just walk and there's your outfit, and it's just like a quick clip of it, and it's like
more
on your
real
way
and raw.
out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and every single outfit I've posted, more or less, in the last year or two, I'm like, that's actually what I wore, and that's actually what I felt good in. And maybe it just takes time. I think it just takes time to find
And
what your taste is.
Exactly. And you're allowed to make mistakes. Gosh, I mean, that's what it's about, is you make the mistakes and you move on, you laugh it off, and in the end of the day, it's not even that serious. It is just clothing in the end. And as long as you're not afraid to have fun and make those mistakes, that's how you find your personal style.
100%.
Yeah, so I really believe in that, and I think when we first started doing those outfit posts is the beginning of like realizing we're not going to just take pictures of our food and post it on Instagram. We're going to do something a little more interesting. So
That tells a story about us.
yeah. Yes.
I guess the last thing we could chat about is, so again, I'm not trying to trend forecast. I'm not trying to, I'm kind of just observing that like the style of drop waists are coming back in a way. Like, so I just noticed a bunch of people were posting up about a month ago on TikTok about this drop waist black dress from Abercrombie and Fitch. And it's very, very slight.
Yes.
And
it's actually really cute.
it is. It's so cute. And they have a black and an orange. And I almost bought the black, actually. Oh, and it's on clearance right now.
It's a good layering piece for fall.
It is. It's gorgeous. And I remember from your shop for my birthday party 2 years ago, I bought a drop waist dress, which was 80s. And I still have it to this day. And I really like the shape it creates because it's kind of like very dramatically like creates this, you know, shape. Like, and I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I think it has something to do with the Regency core that we were seeing, and this is like a distilled, watered down version of that, and also the corseting.
Of course.
It has that vibe. It has that effect of the romantic kind of aesthetic.
Style, aesthetic.
Yes. So I was thinking about this, and I did notice when you said it. I actually didn't notice it until you mentioned it. I was like, oh my gosh, she's right. Because I see it all the time in my 80s dresses. Like, it's not, you know, but now that it's trending, I didn't know. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting that you saw that. And then I looked back on runways, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm seeing it all the time now. And you're right. There is that, like, it's like that certain type of drop waist where it goes in, like, your hips are still kind of hidden with the fabric, but then the middle is kind of dipped down like a corset would be. And yeah, that is a very 80s inspired by older, you know, like Laura Ashley would do a ton of those back in the day. It's that very romantic, feminine
Yeah.
Regency style, I guess. I would,
It just always excites me when a
associated.
new like silhouette is kind of like not introduced, but just either is brought back
reimagined
or
in a way.
reimagined. Yeah, and
Another one that I noticed recently that I wanted to mention, if you noticed too, is the bubble hem is coming back.
yes,
Oh my God.
it's where the skirt goes under the bubbles.
Yes,
Oh
and
my
it like
God.
fluffs up.
I had so many ones.
Homecoming, and actually, that was that was in my time for sure. And I recently bought on ThreadUp, I bought a dress that had a from Tracy Reese, I think. She used to be a big designer. She still is around designing and doing really well, but like Plenty was the name of it. It was Tracy Reese Plenty.
Interesting.
And it was like the junior line.
I've heard of her. Yeah.
And I bought it on ThreadUp, and it's a bubble silhouette, and I recently wore it. I didn't think it was trending or anything like that, but I was it took me back to my days in middle school and high school, and I was like, oh, okay, it looks cute. So
I
all of a
love
sudden
it.
I've been noticing that too, bubble.
Yeah. These new kind of skirt silhouettes, and two of the designers that come to mind, at least for the drop waist and bubble hem, is one of Schiaparelli's most recent couture show. It had bubble like skirt type vibes, and a couple dresses that felt like they were kind of towards that drop waist.
Yeah, they went they wasn't like in the middle. It was kind of like
to the side.
It was like a seam that would go across the waist.
And I thought that was so.
I know. I don't know how easily it is worn on every body shape. Like I think I would enjoy wearing that for my body type, but like, yeah, it's interesting.
It is. And another designer that's kind of the other side of the spectrum. But have you seen Sandy Lang's piece?
Yes.
Very.
I love Sandy Lang.
Yeah.
She's
And she has a lot of stuff from the last couple years.
Your skirt
drop
actually
waist.
kind of has.
That's why I
reminds
bought
me.
it. Because I can't afford her actual
mean,
stuff. And I just was like.
But that's the nice thing is you get inspiration. This is what we do.
Yeah.
This is what we do. Yeah.
So yeah, those are a couple places I noticed that, and it's interesting. It's just like because I immediately thought of you, and I thought of like those vintage dresses and that dress I tried on, and I think I have actually two 80s vintage dresses from you.
Yeah,
that are
there's
a little bit
red one.
The red, yeah, the really bright one.
With all the florals. Yes.
I'm just waiting to wear those to like. I mean, none of my close friends are getting married anytime soon, but like I'm just holding those on for.
You hold on to those
for
because
wedding
those
season.
are super cute, and although they are very much that 80s era, like that style is being reimagined now left and right, and it's really fun to have that in vintage form, I think.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing about vintage. It's not always going to be, you're not always going to wear this, like that style of vintage, but you hang on to it because it's special. So yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. I love that. I'm amazed that the drop waist is coming back.
It's just, when I saw it on Abercrombie and Fish of all places, I'm like, well, that's got to say something. And that I looked up the dress on TikTok, and you can just tell from how many video, and it was like a lot of people buying them, and that happens a lot with certain specific pieces on TikTok. Like an influencer gets one, and they're like, oh my God, run, don't walk to so and so and get this piece, and that's how it starts.
Oh
to
my
trend.
gosh,
But it's interesting.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, I think we might.
Wow,
we covered a lot of
so
ground.
much. Oh my goodness. I mean, we can just keep going, but yeah, it's like fashion is that kind of thing. It's not so shallow, you know? You have so many different facets and avenues that can stem from talking about clothing in general. So
I like that
too.
it's not so shallow, it's very deep. You can jump in the deep end, or you can be in the shallow end with fashion.
Your preference.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Sivan, for being here with me. It's been a joy to chat with you as always, and I know we'll keep chatting away every time I come into your shop. So thank you for being here.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me. This has been so fun, and like just getting my like wheels turning about clothes and why we do what we do.
Absolutely. I just want to say a huge thank you to Evan Prunty, who helped produce this podcast episode through Black Valve Media. And thanks again to Sivan for joining me today. And stay tuned for future episodes of the Changing Room podcast.